all, thank you to SN and Spencer for such a beautiful space. Deep Dive and Anita with Art Dialogues for hosting us online. I think the film will be the introduction for our selector for the night, Mr. Joe Gomez. If people have questions, we have a microphone and it will go around and you can ask either myself and Joe any questions. Yeah, anyone?
Okay, first of all, I'm very proud of you. Secondly, what are diggers?
That's my mum. So diggers are like the ninjas that go through and they're like, okay, what's that? What's in the dark corners of the record room that haven't been looked through yet? Let me find some gold dust. And that's what Joe was doing on the phone to Europe and bringing things in. So, yeah, that's kind of what diggers are.
So you featured some of the artists that you helped, bring into the spotlight. Like, for example, Culture Club, right? Can you share a few others that you're exceptionally surprised or proud of? And it's just really exciting.
Sure. Great question. And thank you for everyone for being here. Felt really good. That was the first time I saw it. And so I didn't know I said those things. Another great example, I think, is a group called Yellow, and they did Bostitch. Stiff Records brought it in from a small label out in the UK, and my store was on Worth Street, and Stiff Records opened their little distributorship on Canal Street. So I can't remember her name. I'll call her Nancy. I don't know. She calls me and she says, listen, I have some test pressings that we need to get rid of because we're signing this label, this record, and you want to come over and listen to it. And I said, sure. So it's a couple of blocks away. I take a walk, go up to their office. They've got boxes all over the place. And she puts it on. I think after the first 3 drum rolls, I took all of them. And so that's another big record that I think blew up, I guess, in New York City, because the first person that bought it from me was Carlos De Jesus, who was the program director at KTU at the time. And Jose Animal Diaz used to do the mix for them. And he was playing out in a club in South Jersey, I believe. And so we had a bunch of DJs, mobile DJs, that would come in, unfortunately for me, on early Saturday morning when I was coming out of hanging out a few hours earlier. And they all heard about the record, and that flew off the shelves. And eventually Stiff put it out, and that's another great record. I think a lot of people who know it play it. I brought a copy with the original test pressing here as well.
Can you talk us through the process of how you discovered the artists? Like, were you actually traveling to Europe and meeting people, or was it over the phone?
It was yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a great question. Back then, I think the evolution of how record labels, who were, basically corporations, were pushing records on record stores, and they had chain stores that would just take anything. And I don't know if anyone saw an HBO little docu-series. I wouldn't think of docu-series, like a series called Vinyl. And it was kind of trying to tell the story about how they cooked the books and all this other stuff. When I first went to Downtown Records, I worked for Frankie Ramos. I was working part-time, going to school and coming in the afternoon. And we were being shipped boxes of records from anywhere, distributors in UK, France and stuff. I said, we're not selling these records. They're not what we want to sell. So I'd get on the phone, I guess the 6-hour difference, and they'd play me the records. And I'd pass and pass and pass. This is Yazoo, the original 45. They played this for me on the phone, and they played Only You. Looking from a window above. And I said, I don't like that. I said, flip it over. He flips it over, and of course, Situation. Play. And I think I took about 250 copies, and he says, should we press a 12-inch? And I said, yes. So that's how it started, the evolution of, I'm not going to buy from you because you say it's good. I want to buy from you what I think is going to sell in New York. So that kind of on the phone daily kind of thing.
Joe, again, congratulations. How did you create your niche with Downtown Records when you were in the same industry like Rock and Soul, Beat Street Records, Music Factory, Vinyl Mania? How were you able to find your niche?
Okay, so 1979, I go to Downtown Records, and Frankie actually was working at Rock and Soul, and he decided to split off and open his own shop. So now, Vinyl Mania is not selling dance music. They don't sell dance music until 83, 84. I think that's when they started. Like I said, Beat Street, The Wiz, I'm trying to think of all the J&R Record World, all of these different like chain stores were just buying whatever the records gave them. And I was going to clubs, and I had some introduction to dance music through Boom Wa Macau and some other underground clubs. So I heard what was being played in those spaces, and just listening, I guess it's like with anyone else in this room, I know that there are a lot of excellent selectors. I see their faces, and they play stuff, and they curate it themselves, and then they present it, and that's all that was. Nobody else was actually telling the distributor, this is what I want. The distributor was trying to force it on them. So, like I said, what's another record? A guy named Pete Shelley. He was like a new wave person, but the B-side was this down-tempo, became a garage classic kind of thing. You felt the difference in that music. And then I had Carlos De Jesus from KTU. Frankie Crocker used to come in from BLS. Kiss FM was tied into IDRC Record Pool, and Eddie Rivera would come in pretty much every other day, and they would listen and bring to the record stations. Now, we were influencing the record stations. I'd have Larry Levan, Kenny Carpenter, Roy Thode, Preston Powell, Leroy Washington, Jelly Bean. All of these club DJs were coming in to get records that they could not get in the record pools because they wanted to present things. So, Kenny Carpenter, there's another kind of thing that a good give and take. Kenny Carpenter goes to Germany. I'm about to close the shop. It's like 8 or 9 o'clock here. I don't know what time it would be in Germany, maybe early in the morning. He just left the club, and some guy played Din Da Da for him.
Din da da do do do, din da da do do, din da da do do do, din da da do do.
And he's telling me on the phone, I'm like, I don't know what the freak he's saying. He's high. I don't, Din Da Da, Joe, Din Da Da. Get Din Da Da. Okay, I'll get Din Da Da. And so the next morning, I'm calling the distributors. Do they know what Din Da Da is? And of course, that became a hit at the Funhouse. And I went to the Funhouse for a lot of different reasons, but Jelly Bean used to actually call ahead before, like on a Friday night, can you bring me such and such and such? So that's the difference, I think. I think, like I said, I see a lot of faces here that are doing that now with what they're curating for their own playlists.
Hey, Joe. Yo, can you tell us about ESG?
I know. I was waiting.
Downtown Records was on Worth Street, which was in the center. This was a perfect place to have a record shop. You had the city workers working up the block. You had the state workers working up the block, and you had the federal workers working across the street and some other place. So I used to circle the Friday when all three of their paychecks hit. So city workers would get paid every Friday. State workers got paid every second week. And the federal workers got paid twice a month. So that was kind of strange. Anyway, young lady, a mother of a talented musician, works at sanitation, which was down the block. And she comes in and she says, you got all these records. How come you don't have my son's record? Who's your son? Oh, they have this big hit. Okay, tell me about it. It's called ESG.
You see, I was gonna see my baby, and it makes me feel moody, like this.
And the owner is on 99 whatever street. And I said, okay. I looked him up, called him. Do you have a record by ESG? And he goes, yeah, I have a few. You want some? I go, sure. I go over there. And not only does he have a few, they're not selling. Because he was catering to a crowd at like CBGB's. And this is great underground dance music. He's had 3 other releases before. moody. And so I took every copy. And again, the people that came to the shop were radio program directors. And again, I think this was Carlos de Jesus picked it up. They had it on the radio within an hour. He went back and played it on. And 99 whatever records started selling all of his back catalog. The next big hit they had was Liquid Liquid. So, you know, that goes with White Lines and all that other good stuff. But that's how New York started developing that underground feel. You had the radio stations competing with each other, and then you had these smaller labels also pushing all this stuff. But had she not come to me and asked me, why don't you have my son's record, I don't think it would have passed that.
First of all, just want to say congrats to Lily and Joe. This is really cool. I'm personally really lucky and honored to have a guy like Joe around for us to interact with and hear these stories. And just, you know, it's a cool bridge between back in the day and to where we're at now. So I think we should all just kind of take a moment to feel lucky about that. My question is, how did you guys originally meet? Lily, how did you and Joe meet?
We met through a friend, Keta. Keta took me to Femme Fontaine on her birthday. Yeah. And I met Joe that night, and it was also happened to be the night where I had bought my first pair of turntables. And they were at the house, and I hadn't yet seen them yet. And I was like out meeting Joe, and I was like, Joe, I've been collecting records for 5 years. I haven't got turntables until today. So I've been buying records, and I've had no way of listening to them. But today is the day that I can finally start like uncovering them. He was like, great, you can play here next week. I was like, you're joking, right? He was like, nah, it's fine. It's just music. Just put it on, play it. I'm sure it's great. So he gave me my first like all vinyl gig. And then, yeah, the rest is history. We became really good friends after that.
And the selection was great, and everybody enjoyed it, and it's been perfect ever since, right?
And the addiction of buying records has just got worse.
Hey Joe, hey Lily, congrats as well. I think one question I asked for Joe is like, I know you took a break in selling records, right? And then like, I think your second wave, like what kind of like brought you back? Was it like a show you went to, like a DJ you saw, a record you listened to, a new record you listened to, or just... or was it just retirement, I guess, if that's it too, you know? But even then, from like retirement, what kind of brought you back? What was like the thing that like kind of, the itch, I guess?
Yeah, Hiram and Paula back there. Hiram actually was doing parties called Prince and King, and it was a resurgence of vinyl records back in New York. But if you look in the mirror, you're going to see the person that has the passion for music, and you never lose it. And the break was a choice at the time. It was a good choice, I thought. But I never lost the, I guess the word again, passion to do this. And so I was at a party that Prince and King did, and I was like, I better start getting back into this. I had been working in California. I came back to another party that Trevor Fox did, and I was standing there, and they were playing vinyl records, and I was like, I'm going to go back tomorrow, or whatever that day was. I went to my boss and said, listen, I'm going to retire. And they said, oh, so soon? I said, yes. And when I came back to New York, Paul and then Hiram and I, we had this range music production for parties, and I just splintered it off onto the records. And I want to say the person that had probably the most passion, we lost. So Albert, he had such a charisma that people would come to Downtown Records and say, you know, they'll ask him for records, and he sold so many records to people and changed their lives. Anyway, you never lose your passion for this, and don't, because life is short.
Thanks, Joe.
Hi, Joe. And yeah, so sorry for your loss. I guess I have like a two-part question, and it's just like, one, are you like an organized person, like naturally? And two, no. Okay. Yeah, me neither. So, all right, cool. In that case, what are like the rules of thumb that you've like come up with for keeping all of your stuff organized? Because that's like just so much media. It seems
hard.
Me and Jackie, we did a party called Friends. And organization, we brought crates of crazy records that we knew the records in the crates were there. And by the time we did 12 hours of playing, we found the ones we wanted to play. But Lilly is sworn to secrecy because she came to the apartment today. And I didn't start off organizing them because before you used to see the label and you knew exactly what everything was. Now they're numbered, they're cataloged, and they're about 40% done.
But you find everything. That's the thing. As I'm watching you and I'm thinking, the catalog in your mind, like how your mind works, what it must be to just know music so well that you know how to find stuff. Okay, let's have one more question from the crowd. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you both for putting this on, and thank you guys as well. Excellent film. I wanted to touch on, I guess, the fact that you guys, you, Joe Gomez, you were in New York City in a completely different, I guess, time and context, and we're experiencing all this older music in a different context from what you heard it originally. And it's just, since the landscape has changed so much, rent has gone up, culture's sort of becoming homogenized through algorithms and things like that. How do you think we can continue to build things that are real into the future?
I think the simple answer is you look in the room and the community that's here, you know, the listening bars that are up, there's a few in the room. They're helping to develop that, but it's everybody in the room. It's get a little political here. It's the pushback. Like we're getting this other pushback now to stamp us down. This is when you stand up and you push back, and we become the community that does that, right?
I just want to add to that as well, because I was reflecting on like why this film was made in the first place, and it came from a conversation out of Joe and I talking and with Laura. Hi. Where we were underneath a neon sign that said no dancing, and I was like, "What is that about, Joe?" He was like, the cabaret laws in 1929 when it was illegal to dance in places XYZ, to restrict people, right? To kind of like, suppress jazz, suppress black culture, suppress marginalized communities. And it evolved into a conversation about the power of music to transform and how New York has been transformed by the music. And it's this dialogue between, the city being evolved through that, but also the power that music has to unify and to bring people together and to amplify and to remind each other that we're here and we are powerful. And what happens on a dance floor extends beyond the dance floor into the world, and it ripples out in ways that you can never quantify. That's the magic of it, right? So keeping that alive, and like these splinters that Joe talks about in the film, like seeds that need to be nurtured wherever we find them, wherever they are. And that they will grow. Maybe not in our lifetime, we may not see like the full abundance and the full jungles that will come from it, but they will come. So we keep nurturing it, and that's the point. That's why the film was made. So let's keep it alive together. And thank you so much for being here.